Patty Lyons' Knitting Bag of Tricks is the knitting book that I did not know I needed. I'm Michelle, this is my romantic tangle, and I cannot gush enough about this book. The nice folks at David and Charles Publishing sent me a copy so I could do a review video for you, and it is not what I expected. I knew it was going to be a book of knitting techniques. I did not know that it was going to be a book explaining all the things that I did not know how to do. I learned to knit about 20 years ago, and I've done a fair amount over the years, but I'm competent enough to usually get the results I want. I am not a perfectionist, never have been. I would say never will be, but some of the tricks in this book I'm going to start using, and I think I'll get better at it. This is not a book of projects. This is a book of techniques. It is like taking a class, and the whole concept of knitting is you are taking loops of yarn, pushing and pulling them through one another to get it to create the great effects that you want. The author explains how and why that yarn loops and twists the way that it does to do the things you want it to do. One of my challenges about a week ago is I dropped a stitch on a garter stitch shawl. It laddered down quite a ways. I know how to ladder up a stitch on stockinette. I quickly discovered that I did not know how to do that on garter stitch. It doesn't work the same way. Through trial and error and a little bit of fussing and swearing, I managed to fix it. There's a chapter in this book that tells you how and why those loops push and pull in the directions they do. I took a highlighter to this book so I'll be able to find things later. She covers decreases, left-leaning, right-leaning, what to use when and what they look like, because I know how to do both. I'm not good at remembering which is which. I'm not good at knowing which one I want to use in what circumstances. She talks about twisted stitches and how the legs sit on the needles and sizing your stitches and all of the stuff that I don't have a solid understanding of, even though when I started knitting, I checked out every book the library had, read them all, and a lot of it went over my head, and a lot of it, if things are going right, she talks about learning to knit as first you do this, 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 and this, and this is the result you get. But sometimes this doesn't turn out the way you thought it did, and you have to go back and fix it, and this will explain how. She's got a whole chapter on what she calls cookie math, and it's on gauge and how to figure out what gauge you are getting and what to do if you're not getting the right gauge, and how to make adjustments, and how to properly wash and block your swatch and hang it. And some of this is way more technical than I think I will ever get to. There are a lot of things like the decreases and the laddering up stitches that I can use today. There is a section on how to make your stripes match up while you're knitting in the round, and next time I knit in the round and stripe something, I'm totally pulling this out. I have it bookmarked. Buttonholes, shaping the sloped decreases on a shoulder so that you have a neater seam. Blanket stitch, which I am a miserable failure at when seaming pieces together. This is like a course in knitting, but you can take it a bit at a time. You can go back and find what you need when you need it. It is very limited to a certain set of techniques. So it's basic knitting. It's increases, decreases, yarn overs before and after a knit or purl stitch, fixing mistakes to an extent. There's a great section on knitting in your ends that I plan on doing next time I make a shawl. The illustrations are by Franklin Habit, and they aren't as cute as what I've seen of his in like Interweave Knits, but they are clear and you can see what you're doing. So she talks about things like ending your row where you have ribbing, how it typically turns out, and what to do to make it turn out better. There's a lot of perfectionism here, and I think a bit at a time I might be getting a little less imperfect with my knitting, we'll call it that. If you want to look at more books on knitting and quilting and needlework, check out my sewing room bookshelf. The link is in the corner. I'm Michelle. This is my romantic tangle. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know, what do you have the most trouble with when it comes to getting your knit stitches to do what you want them to? Is this a book that'd be useful for you?